Good evening. This is the Walpole Zoning Board of Appeals. Tonight is Wednesday, June 15th. It is 7 p.m. The first case we have tonight is case number 22-13, 11 Briarwood Lane, special permit under zoning bylaws section 5D of the zoning bylaws to allow excavation and filling exceeding 100 cubic yards of earth within a residential use. So we have some pieces of correspondence on this. We have a memorandum from Nicola Fasandola, professional engineer, dated February 6th on this, and it is about the site. This has been part of the record. We also have a plant healthcare consultants, land use analysis of 11 Briarwood Lane and potential consequences to 21 Briarwood Lane. That is prepared by Daniel E. Cathcart, certified consulting arborist. Yes.
I think we just handed it, so everything was organized separately.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be a little easier to follow.
Okay. We have a project narrative for 11 Briarwood Lane. And I'm looking for comments from, do we have comments from the town departments?
Yep, so we have
Okay. James Crowley. Do we have anything from engineering?
yeah.
Conservation as well.
Conservation.
I'm not seeing that.
Conservation and engineering.
Okay, we've got from engineering. 11 Briarwood Lane. This is from town engineer Carl Baldoff. This office received digital requests for comments on the viewpoint system on May 18th. We note the following. A certified plot plan dated April 4th is uploaded with the application, and as built by RIM engineers. This plan shows stormwater infiltration system required in a recent garage addition to the west of the garage. Care should be taken not to damage this system during any excavation, grading, or trucking of material. Point number 2. 2 additional plans are also uploaded. These plans should also show the stormwater system. Point 3. The project narrative describes grading to the limits of the property, which is more extensive than shown on the updated unlabeled grading plan. The board should decide what the limits and extents of grading should be. 4, the work should be completed and loam seed installed prior to October 15th. Point 5, the project may also require permitting land disturbance from the Conservation Commission. We have a letter from the Board of Health. The Health Department has no issues with this special permit. Do we have anything else from any other town boards?
Yeah, there's a letter dated May 26th from Landis Hershey of the local conservation agent,
Okay.
As well as comments from the Board of Health, the Health Department, dated March 18th.
Okay. So, from Board of Health, May 26th. So this is from Landis Hershey, Walpole Conservation Agent. Adjust grading to the rear of the yard behind the garage to allow larger space for, no, this is the activity. Adjust grading to the rear of the yard behind the garage to allow a larger space for kid play zone. Materials will be excavated out of the hillside, which is owned and maintained by James Delaney. There will also likely be fill brought in to bring up the grade more if needed. Action required. Silt fence and/or compost sock shall be installed parallel to the Briarwood between the lot line of the garage prior to excavation and until the disturbed grades are stabilized to prevent sediments from discharging into roadway. Sediments should be prevented from being tracked onto roadway. The catch basin at the corner of Briarwood and Old Farm Road should be protected with a ring of compost sock if needed. And I already read the health department, and that's it for comments from town boards.
That's correct.
Okay. So is the applicant here? Okay, do you want to come forward, introduce yourself, and explain? Okay.
Third on the list, according to the email I received.
Yeah, okay,
So he's
Um,
not here yet.
okay. So what we can do is we can continue this. And the reason I took it out of order is because I have to recuse myself from the first case, so, but we can do that.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Could I have a motion to continue this case until later this evening?
So moved.
Moved by Drew Delaney,
Second.
second by Judy. Any further discussion to continue this? Okay, and we're just gonna continue it till later this evening. All those in favor of continuing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay, so the next case, case number 22-14, Shawn O'Leary, 6 Phillip Road. I'm gonna have to recuse myself because I work for the direct abutter of this property. And is somebody representing Shawn O'Leary, or somebody representing Shawn O'Leary here?
I am.
Okay. So one of the things with me stepping down, it sort of changes the dynamic of the board. We have a 5-member board.
Okay.
And normally you would need majority to have the special permit. And with me stepping down, you're gonna have to have all 4 members vote in favor of this, where if I was here, you'd only need to have 4 out of 5. But if I step down and you go forward tonight, you have to have all 4 vote for it, okay? It's your call. You know, we're not gonna advise you either way, but I just want you to know that at this point.
All right, I'm new with this, so, I mean, however it works.
Okay. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think you explained it. So obviously in this situation, you need a supermajority vote. If only 4 members can vote, you need a unanimous vote of 4 voting members.
What was that? I couldn't hear.
Sorry. So because the chairman is stepping down because he has works for your abutter, only 4 members are gonna be able to participate. In this
Okay.
situation, when you need a special permit, you need a supermajority vote, and so it's a 5-member board. If only 4 members are participating, you need all 4 members to vote in favor for you to be granted that special permit.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Okay, so I'll recuse myself. Drew Delaney.
Notice hereby given the zoning board of appeals, town of Walpole will hold the public hearing in the main meeting room on Wednesday, June 15th, and on an application from Shawn O'Leary, case 22-14, with respect to the property located at 6 Phillip Road, Walpole, Mass., zoning district RA. This application is for a special permit under zoning bylaws 5B2 of the zoning bylaws to allow the construction of an accessory in-law suite onto an existing single-family dwelling. We have a couple comments from departments.
Mr. Chairman, I have a concern. Sir, do you understand what was just said and what your actions could or could not be tonight? You don't.
I'm not
I know.
understanding
I
the
don't,
question.
I'm just saying, I'm not clear that he understands with only 4 of us.
Right, so
If something.
there is 2 absent members tonight. With the chairman stepping down, that makes 3 members that aren't here.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right,
Okay.
so if you choose to continue the hearing on a future date, there would be the potential for a 5th member.
I see.
which would then be a majority vote for a special permit.
Oh, so instead of everybody saying yes,
In case.
Correct.
I got it, okay. All right. I guess we're gonna have to do that. I mean,
Okay.
Just wanna-
Yeah, so,
I just wanna make
as
sure we
the Vice Chair
understand.
mentioned, so in this situation, typically you have 5 members. With only 4 participating, your voting threshold then needs to be unanimous, whereas before, you can have a supermajority vote, which would be a 4-to-1 with
I got
5.
it. Yep.
So, why you bringing it up is because you're, as an applicant, you're allowed, you're warranted, or you have the right to have a full participating board.
Okay.
And so in this situation, if you do seek to continue, you can wish to continue until there's a 5-member board. We can open, discuss tonight. If you feel that you want to continue for that reason, that's certainly your option,
All right,
so
so
to
we'll
speak.
wait till we got full board, full panel?
Yeah, certainly, if that's your call for that. But if you do have a full 5 members,
Yep.
you can have a 4-to-1 vote, whereas with 4 members, you need everyone to
I got
vote
you.
in favor.
Yep, okay,
All right?
yep.
So it's your option if you wish to proceed on knowing that is a potential.
So will we continue it on another date?
Continue at the end.
Yeah, you can continue the hearing at the end if they open it
Oh,
tonight,
yeah.
yeah.
So if you want to open, discuss, present it to this board, you can also ask to continue before a decision is rendered, or before, you don't have to close the public hearing tonight, so to speak. You can continue to a future date where there's a 5th member.
I have to discuss it.
Yeah, if you wanna discuss it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly your call.
Okay.
All right. So, Mr. Chair.
That
I just wanna make sure you understand.
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel badly, because you're
I think
new.
you can
I don't want you
gauge
to
the
risk it.
questions that may be asked.
Yeah, so, as the chairman mentioned, you can gauge the board if you feel like confident going forward on closing and having a vote rendered, you can. If you feel you wish to continue, you're more than, you're due that right to continue to have a 5th member.
All right, so that would, just get this straight. So
Yes,
it would be on a different date?
correct.
Okay, why don't we do that then? We'll continue it.
Just continue.
Yeah,
Okay.
So,
I mean, I don't know what else.
should we open it or just take it as a continuance?
You can, you've already opened
Opened
it,
it.
so
Okay,
you
so-
do open and continue. If you wish to continue to have 5 members,
The next
Okay.
available meeting would be on July 20th.
All right,
Can I have a motion to continue case 22-14 to July 20th?
So moved.
Moved by Judy, second by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain, oppose, abstain. Motion carried.
all set?
Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
okay.
Okay, next case is case number 22-15, Walpole 1333 LLC, 1337 Main Street. Is the applicant here? This is for a special permit under zoning bylaws, section 5B1, 4Q11, or II, of the zoning bylaws to allow the construction of a walk-up food service window. And for this one, we have
Separate folder, this is John. I don't know if I have. Mr. Chair,
yes.
so you do have a separate folder that just has all the case material organized. So the case folders have everything in it, but they're a little bit all over the place, so.
I believe it's on your right, John, the red folder.
Okay, this one.
Yeah.
Thank
The
you.
public hearing notice will be on the top floor.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. I'm gonna just read the public notice. I mean, the comments that we have from other boards. We have a letter from the Fire Department, Deputy Chief Paul Barry. The Walpole Fire Department has reviewed the plans and application for the above noted location. We offer the following comments to the Board of Appeals regarding request for a special permit. We offer no objections to the request for a walk-up window, however, we recommend that traffic barriers be required. We have a letter from Carl Baldoff, Town Engineer. He notes the following. It is the opinion of this office that the proposed walk up at the service window would need to meet ADA, AAB requirements. However, we defer to the building commissioner, who has the final say. We have no objections to granting relief and remain available should the board have any questions. Okay. And I think that's it, and we have a copy of the old decision which granted the drive-up window, and this is from back in 2001. Okay, so if you would, do you want to identify yourself and explain what you're proposing?
Yeah, my name's Joe LaRusso. I'm the owner of the building. And we have this Reader's Italian Ice and frozen yogurt going in there, frozen custard. She'll yell at me if I say that. And she wants to put two service windows in the front where there's an existing window now. The drive-up window will be used as, obviously, for drive-up. And then they will have, an order window and a pickup window right out front. We have bollards that we'll be putting in place. Those are already taken care of. They're not done, but they will be done. And just asking the board's approval of that.
Okay. So you heard from the fire chief talking about a barrier that would separate.
Yeah, I think on the plan it might show the bollards. There's gonna be 9, 2, 3 along the drive-up side, and then 6 across the front, about every 4 feet on the spaces right in front of 1337.
I don't think it shows it on the plan.
Can I step up?
Sure, yeah. Is this the plan right here?
All right, well, it doesn't. Yeah, other plans that I have seen, it does. We show sorry, John.
No problem.
Here's your drive up.
Right.
And there's actually gonna be 6 bollards in here every 4 feet from the corner that'll take care of all the pull-up people right to that.
Okay. So that's something that we could condition. What about on this spot right here?
Okay, there's gonna be one here, on this concrete here. There'll be one after the drive up. There'll be one here on the corner. And right now there's a strip of rocks in there which we're gonna take out and cement. And then there'll be a bollard at the corner, in the middle of each space, and at the edge and middle of each space, coming along to about this spot right here.
Okay. So one of my concerns is people walking from this area out into vehicles leaving the drive-through. And I think that's what the deputy chief was talking about as far as a barrier. Do you plan to have a barrier along here?
Well, there will be a bollard right in here
Okay,
to stop them from walking right out that way. I mean, I can't put one in the sidewalk, obviously.
okay,
But I mean, people are walking in and out of there just to go into the building, so, now, except this time they'll have a frozen custard in there.
okay.
We can hash mark it with, some type of, paint.
Okay. Okay, other board members, everybody have a set of the plans, and do other board members have questions or comments on this?
A couple questions.
Judy?
Mr. LaRusso, so you'll drive in your regular driveway, and there'll be signs directing people to the drive around?
There'll be, some paint marks in the back,
Mhm.
and always there's arrows to circle around the building
Right,
right
one
now.
way right now, okay.
So, yeah, we'll have, we'll probably have a Rita's frozen or Italian ice on the fence line too with an arrow maybe.
Okay, and you'll have an ordering board or something at the back?
There's gonna be an ordering board, they'll come around the back of the building, turn right, turn left. There'll be an order board there, just like you go to McDonald's. There'll be some, I forget what they call it, but there's some, be wires in the ground to alert them that there's somebody there.
Okay. Thank you.
Well,
What other businesses are currently located within that area?
Coco Fit is moving up there from near the CVS. There's a dentist, there's a hairdresser, and upstairs there's 4 other offices, there's lawyers, engineers, Ameriprise, and financial, and a PT.
All about the same business hours?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Probably, they're mostly 9 to 5. Physical therapy might be a little later.
Right.
And then lawyers, they work when they have to, so if it's something, but it's all pretty much 9 to 5 as far as upstairs. And pretty much the same downstairs. The dentist might be open at 8 o'clock to 5:30. And then the hairdresser's about the same, except on Sunday and Monday.
So I frequent the Dunkin' Donuts across from McMorgan's. And there is a similar setup to what you're describing to do here, where people walk out of Dunkin'
Yep.
Donuts and cut across the parking lot, right as people are trying to leave the
Yeah.
drive-through. And it's a blind spot where people are walking there,
This is probably 6 or 8 feet from the corner of the building,
okay?
where the sidewalk is.
Right,
So you'd have a little more, if you're paying attention, you got more,
yeah, they got a little
Over
more
field
running
of view.
room for the car to
Well,
rev up,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
one or the other.
yeah. I mean, we can, I'm just gonna spitball here for a minute. We can probably figure out a way to, like, put a sign on, there's a post. I could put a sign on one of the ballers. Caution, watch for pedestrians or something.
Would it be out of the question, and I'm not a traffic engineer, so I don't know, but to potentially look at putting a speed bump or something that would potentially slow a vehicle leaving that drive-through?
I hate speed bumps. So,
Right.
like, they're not gonna go that fast anyhow, because the drive-up window from the sidewalk, the edge of the sidewalk back to the drive-up window is 12, maybe 15 feet at the most.
Okay,
So you're gonna see the car's hood. In other words, as they pull up to the door, the window to get their service, they're gonna be sticking forward of that window. So you would see the hood, you would see the front end of the car.
I think I would as an adult, but a child, like my kids who are running over to grab a slushie or whatever it is that you're selling may not have the same perspective, even though I teach
Yeah,
them look
I-
both
I-
ways and,
Respectfully, you can put as many caution things there as you want. If people don't pay attention, that's,
okay, well, I appreciate it, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
I mean, I can hash mark it with yellow. On the bollards, I can put on one bollard, I can put watch for cars, on the other one, I can put watch for people.
Mm.
That's what I have in my notes, just so you know. We're on the same, that's what I have.
Yeah, I can have a sign, I have a sign, we'll just attach it to the bollards, that's easy enough.
Judy?
Would you consider, there's parking to the south side of the building on the same side as the drive-through. Would you consider designating that as employee parking or building employee parking only? So the chance of a customer parking over there and needing to cross over would be much less.
Well, there's gonna be custom
Custom
parking
parking.
up front. There'll probably be 3 or 4 spaces up front.
Mhm.
Most of the tenants park out back,
Oh, okay,
and some on that side. So,
okay.
But, again, put as much signage as you want.
No, true.
They're gonna park where they want. This is more convenient, I'm gonna go park here.
Instead of signage, would it make any sense to put, just a low rail, like, I don't wanna call it a fence, cause it doesn't, wouldn't really go that far.
From the edge of the building to the,
Yeah, just so that somebody buying their, custard there, then they, it would just absolutely
You know, the
prevent
nice,
them.
yeah, I could do something like that.
prevent them from walking in that direction. At least they still have to go through the parking lot, but at least
Yeah, we
they'd
could
be
go
entering
from
at a
the
less
corner of the
risky
building.
spot.
Go from the corner of the building to like kind of the edge of the sidewalk.
Right.
And then they have to walk around that to go to the service window.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can do
Do
something,
something
yeah,
like that.
that's, if you
Okay.
wanna put that in your notes, I mean, put
Okay.
that in your decision, that's fine.
Okay.
Probably only 6 feet of fence,
Yeah,
that's easy.
yeah, okay.
Easy's always good.
Okay.
Is there a 20-day appeal period on something like this?
Yeah, so after a decision is written and recorded for clerk's office, there's a 20-day appeal period.
Okay. Gives me time to get the fence.
Okay.
Actually, that's a great idea, the fence.
Anything else on this? Okay. What are the hours of operation? Do you know that?
Hers, I think she's talking roughly 12 to 9, and it's only a 9-month season. Well, she's talking about, you know, that 9 months. Although I said, I hope you're open over the winter, it's better for your business.
So, well, we'll find out if there's any neighbors concerned about that. Okay. Anything else?
I have one.
Yeah.
What's the current lighting situation of the parking lot?
We have overhead lights. You know, there's, in each corner of the parking lot, there's the pole lamps. Around the building, on the sides and back, are surface mounted, you know, LEDs. And then in the front, there are, I think, 6 low lights that, you know, all 4, lights all 4 sides.
Okay.
And then there's lights underneath the entrance to each doorway.
What's the lighting like through the drive-through?
There's lights underneath the drive-through.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I think there's 4 lights that are underneath the drive-through.
That's all I have, thank you.
Are there any neighbors to comment or have questions on this? Okay. So, if there were neighbors, one of the things I'd probably be looking at is, and they were concerned about hours of operation, but it doesn't seem like anybody's concerned about, are other board members?
Well, it's all
Interested.
commercial right there anyhow. You got Rico's on one side,
Yep.
and the liquor store. You have the dry cleaners on the other side, then Cumberland Farms across, and then the
Yeah.
veterinarians.
Yep, so many places in town, we would be looking at hours of operation for a special permit, but I think in this case, that's not necessary.
Okay.
So what I had from my notes was 2 signs. And 2 signs, one that says for the drive-through, caution for, watch for pedestrians,
Yeah,
and one coming out
watch for
of the,
cars.
watch for cars. Okay?
Yeah, that's easy.
Okay, so, those 2. Also, as Bob said, a fence that will go from the corner of the building to the sidewalk so that people can't get their ice cream and just do a quick turn into the
Yeah,
possible
that's-
traffic.
Yeah, just include those in your decision, and those are easy.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Okay. Bob?
No, I think based on the, criteria that we're evaluating for a special permit, the pedestrian safety strikes me as a key issue, and I think we've addressed it by the conditions that you've agreed to, so I'm pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah. You know, I looked at the decision from back in 2001 for the building, and, you know, a lot of thought was put into the building, including the drive-through at the time. You already have the drive-through, so really what we're talking about is the addition of the window, and really, I think the question of parking, you know, I don't think it's the zoning board's position to say where people are gonna park. But I think we can do it, whatever is possible to increase the pedestrian safety. Okay. Good. Anything else from board members? So, Stephen, we'd have 4 conditions for this. One, assigned caution watch for pedestrians, assigned caution watch for cars, and then the fence that would go from the corner of the building to the concrete walkway. That's 3.
Is the
That's,
bollards, I mean, I know he's gonna put the bollards in, but since it's not shown in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bollards to prevent, the purpose of the bollards is to prevent cars from going up.
What is-
The bollards,
Bollards, yeah.
to prevent cars from going on the sidewalk.
Yeah, we've already planned on that from day one, basically. They got so excited with their frozen custard, they're gonna have a new drive-in.
So, the 4th condition would be bollards placed to prevent cars from going onto the sidewalk. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, we figured about 4 feet apart, it's pretty hard to get a car through that.
Okay. So, at this point, do you want to close the hearing?
Yeah, as long as you vote positive.
Yes. So, this is just a vote to close the hearing. At the request of the applicant, could I have a motion to close the hearing? Moved by
Second.
Drew, second by Judy. Okay, this is just to close the hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. Now, as we discussed, for this special permit, it meets the requirements for the walk-up service window, and 4 conditions, 2 signs. 1, watch for pedestrians. Second one, caution, watch for cars. 3, fence from the corner of the building to the sidewalk. And 4, bollards to prevent cars from going onto the sidewalk. Does anybody want anything else in this decision? Could I have a decision, standard conditions and those 4 points? Could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Moved by Drew,
Second.
second by Judy. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. When do you expect to open?
As soon as I can.
Okay, well,
Well, I have to wait 20 days to do the window. The building inspector asked me to wait 20 days. I don't think anybody's gonna oppose it, but I'm gonna do what he wants. But, yeah, that'll be probably the last thing we have to do is put that in.
okay, good luck. You good with the,
Thank you very much.
thanks. You good with the decision? Okay. 11 Briarwood Lane, do you have your people here? Okay. Next case, we're going to reopen case number 22-13 11 Briarwood Lane, special permit under the zoning bylaws, section 5D of the zoning bylaws, to allow excavation and filling exceeding 100 cubic yards of earth within the residential, within a residential use. Okay. We already read the comments, and we had a number of submissions from one of the neighbors, which is part of the record. And at this point, if the applicant wants to explain what's being proposed, and Patrick, can you pick this up on the camera? Okay.
So essentially, I am trying.
Please just introduce yourself for the
sorry.
record.
My name is James Delaney. I live at 11 Briarwood Lane. I have with me Michael Freiberger, my landscaper from MF Landscaping here in Walpole. Through Mike and I, we've had extensive conversation about my backyard. It's not really suitable for my kid, who's 2.5 years old, to be running around. It's fairly sloped, and it was our goal to excavate some of the hill that goes up the side of my yard and displace that material into the lower part of the backyard, as well as truck in some material to fix the grade, to essentially give my family and my daughter a better life and an area to play and enjoy the backyard. That's essentially what our plan is.
Okay. So, do you want to walk us through the plans, and we have these plans before us also.
So the septic more or less comes off the backside of the house straight out and then leaches out. So we can't come up to the higher grade because it's already 3 feet of cover. It's lower grade that comes through here. We want to take this section of the hill out, pull it, move it, and add to an increased grade on this side just as a lower flat area. Right now the grade is probably 20%. In that lower zone, we want to try and end up with 4 or 5%, so we can have a swing set zone, a play area that rides back up to the leaching area. What they'd be left with is probably a slope that's less than 30%, back to a wooded area, so a stable hill. And then the entire area that's on the lower side would be all planted with lawn or a swing set zone.
Okay, so when I first heard this case was coming to us, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a gravel operation, and
It is not a gravel operation.
Okay.
Most of the material is going to stay on the property.
Okay. Okay, and it's just to level the backyard, that's,
Or area, yeah.
okay.
Kind of gullies down between the properties, and from rough calculations, you do have over 100 yards of material, that's why.
Okay.
Do you have an estimate of how much?
Right now, the estimate was 102 yards. 2 yards over. And we'd probably be bringing more material in if that, I mean, again, we're here anyways.
Okay. Okay. Board members, any other questions before we open it up to the public?
What is the current fill that's there? What's kind of the soil classification?
The lower zone, that I haven't dug in to look at, but there's just existing lawn there right now.
No ledge boulders, anything like that we're talking about?
Because there's septic, even in the hillside that we're excavating out. And there's pictures and stuff, it's pretty bony, but not ledge.
And all that's the
Taking
stuff
off.
that you're gonna be pushing off, you're not filtering out?
We're taking this material out and pulling it down to the lower grade plus adding some.
Okay.
There's already trees that are removed in that area, just excavating that stuff out, and you've got a whole wooded area with a slope that's less than 30%, going back up is what we'd be leaving it as.
And how far are you coming from the neighbor's property line to the,
I don't
to
have
the
scale
west?
of this. I mean, this is Jim's, obviously, outside property line. I mean, you're talking here, you're talking 20 plus feet from Jim's property line, so obviously the neighbor's property line, which I assume the driveway's.
And it's gonna be, what's gonna be the grade? Do you know what the grade is?
It'd be less than 30%.
If we put that into a condition, that would be,
Perfect timing.
we'd hold you to that, less than 30% grade.
More or less a stable hillside to avoid having to put a big retaining wall up.
that be, I guess the intention is to make it lawn, but will any areas that are sloped like that be replanted or to?
That's
prevent-
something we're discussing now. You know, obviously it's a wooded area that he's not going to use.
Mhm.
At the same time, he doesn't wanna have the hill fall into his backyard.
Right.
So as far as stabilization, what we probably intend to do is shoot something like no-mow, grass mix. It's,
No, mo-
what you see in between highways.
okay.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
yeah, go ahead.
Under section, paragraph C of this, it says, work that's incidental to swimming pools and septic systems, and I would also hope it would include play yard site or whatever. You're not bringing any fill in, except for, I'm gonna guess, some nice loam so you can plant around closer to the house, correct?
Correct.
And that would be approximately how many cubic
For the
yards?
planting around the property or
Yeah.
in the lower zone,
The planting around the property,
like the foundation?
yeah,
Foundation, you know, we're talking 7 or 8 yards.
okay, and I know,
Lower area where it's being filled.
yep,
Probably have a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot area, so say you're making 6 inches. Let's do,
it's not gonna be anywhere close to 100 cubic yards.
of loam bring in, well, let's see. I have 90 yards of loam, if you put 6 inches of loam across the entire space.
Okay. And I know to the right of the house and kind of towards the back, that kind of slopes.
Yeah,
In and
kinda all
down,
gullies and-
right.
Exactly.
So are you gonna-
It's that lower zone, so we're trying to make that just so it's a better play zone.
Okay, so that's also being spread, so what you're gonna carve out is gonna be moved around on the
Correct.
same property.
Right, just give it.
And then you're gonna bring in some topsoil.
Correct.
Okay. Mhm.
How will you be bringing the equipment slash material onto the property?
Through here.
Which is not, is that Briarwood as well, or is that a
It's
different?
Old Farm. It's off of Old Farm.
Is there a curb on that? It's a curb on Briarwood, right?
There's a curb on both Briarwood and Old Farm.
I don't think there's enough room to go.
No, there's not, and that would potentially crush the stormwater recharge system.
Yeah, so the easiest route would be this way. Obviously, we could go this way, it's just it's a straighter shot.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's it for our end.
So, we have two pieces of correspondence from, well, I already said this, from Daniel Cathcart, Certified Consulting Arborist, and this goes into details about the trees on the site, and what I think we should look at is the conclusion and recommendations. So conclusion, based on the assumption that the owner of Briarwood Lane, 11 Briarwood Lane removes all the tag trees and excavates the slope to create a level rear yard, the direct effect will be significant erosion to the hillside of Dr. Backner's property, resulting in an undermining of Dr. Backner's yard and driveway. This will cause sinking and buckling of his driveway and will require costly maintenance to prevent. The soil type in this area is particularly susceptible to erosion. If this project is to proceed and prevent the erosion, an adequate retaining system must be installed. And recommendations. To prevent erosion and damage to Dr. Backner's property and driveway, that's the healthcare consultant, recommend the installation of an engineering retaining wall along with limits of the excavation. An engineered retaining wall will moderate the erosion of hillside and will reduce damage to Dr. Backner's property. So there's a number of assumptions and limited conditions that are also provided in that this document. Okay. We also have a letter from Level Design Group. This is from Nicola Facendola, professional engineer. And again, goes through a lot of detail, which I have read, and the conclusion is, the provided review of the proposed special permit application and supporting documents details that there are significant deficiencies within the special permit application as submitted, along with several factors which do not meet the criteria of zoning bylaw section 5D6, specifically lines C and D. Section 5D6C states, whether the activity shall result in significant negative impact to the natural environment, the excavation of existing slope will remove existing mature vegetation. Okay. The first part was from the bylaw. This is the comment. The excavation of the existing slope will remove existing mature vegetation, which is currently helping to hold and stabilize the existing slope. No further information was provided in the application on how erosion from the slope will be mitigated and what erosion and sediment controls will be utilized to protect surface water runoff within the identified Town of Walpole Groundwater Protection District. Section 5D, 6D states, quote, whether the activity will result in a change of topography or cover disadvantage to the most appropriate use of the land, unquote. Comment is, the excavation area has been left as an undisturbed slope since the mid-1970s, when the structure at 11 Briarwood Lane was constructed, because the slope is required to support the existing driveway located at 21 Briarwood Lane, which was originally constructed in the mid-1920s, nearly 50 years before 11 Briarwood was developed. The excavation of the existing slope and change in topography will negatively impact the existing driveway and water line at 21 Briarwood Lane if the proper provisions are not put in place to stabilize the exposed slope and prevent erosion during construction. It is a recommendation that the ZBA require the applicant to provide detailed engineering plans in order to properly evaluate any potential impacts which may result from the proposed excavation. Removal of the previously cut large diameter tree stumps, regarding regrading of the area as proposed, and consider conditions to protect the existing driveway and water line at 21 Briarwood Lane as detailed above. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I just want to make sure that was also submitted by the neighbor to the applicant's property.
right, these are comments
Yes.
paid. This is a memorandum that we've received that was sent to Mr. Brian Backner of 21 Briarwood Lane. Okay. At this point, though, unless you have anything else to add, we'll open it up to the public.
Thank you.
There's, well, a couple things actually. The current slope doesn't have any sort of wall maintaining it. So the goal again would be to remove that material, restore the grade that's there, like I said, 30% less, and stabilize it. Not a civil engineer, but it's pretty far away from that driveway. I don't see that as being an issue. And I don't have credentials to tell you that, but it's well outside that driveway zone. What we're trying to prevent here is having to create a civil engineering plan and spend $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 to create documents to level off the backyard area. Jim and I have spoken about just instead, the goal obviously would probably be best if we could excavate that hill to gain some room, if we have to, fill the zone to achieve that same thing. But obviously, being able to gain yard space at the same time is kind of goal one.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, is there anybody here from the public or neighbors to speak on this?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Gregory Sullivan. I'm an attorney, and I represent Dr. Backner and his wife, Regina Wodensky, of 21 Briarwood. At the outset, I want to say the goal here is not to stop the proposed construction, but merely to make sure it's done in such a way that it doesn't present immediate damage or long-term damage to the Backner's property, specifically the driveway, which I believe is within about 10 feet of the proposed excavation, and the water line is even closer. It's to the right of the driveway as you're facing 21 Briarwood Lane. I was going to ask to make sure that members of the board were familiar with the two reports from Mr. Fasendola and Mr. Cathcart, but I was going to just highlight the summaries and conclusions, which the board has already done. I would say that both Mr. Fasendola and Mr. Cathcart are here and would be glad to answer any questions members of the board might have. But it's very clear that in both of their opinions, a detailed engineering plan is needed, which would provide for erosion control measures, and as already mentioned, the groundwater protection district. I couldn't see, I had trouble hearing, that's why I moved up the front, must be my age, but then I couldn't see what the landscaper was pointing to in the plan that was up there, but if it's the same plan that was uploaded with the application, it shows plantings around the garage and home, but nothing on the hill bordering my client's property. There are two large trees that were cut down. I don't know if the stumps and roots have been removed yet or not, but I understand there are at least 11 other trees that have tags around them. We can only assume they're tagged for removal. But the plan should show what trees are being removed, what measures are going to be implemented to replace the erosion control that mature vegetation now provides. To be clear, it's the conclusion of both of the experts with the detailed reports that I hope you all will read, that if this excavation took place in the areas that we believe are designated on the plan, and again, it's really not clear from the plan that was uploaded, and that's from, I'm sorry, it's either, I guess it's MF Landscape and Design, but there's no indication of any erosion control measures such as a retaining wall or jute blankets or all the various things that can be done to prevent significant erosion. If that erosion occurs, the driveway at 21 Briarwood will fail, if you will, buckle and sink. Same for the water line. So they're very real and serious concerns that not only my clients have, but that the arborist and the engineer have really dealt with in their reports to the board. I would be glad to turn it over. I'm not an expert in either of those fields, engineering or arborist areas, but they are, and they're here. And if I could bring them up, and if the board has any questions, they'd be glad to field them. But their concerns are very strong and very valid, I would submit, because they are the experts and they have dealt with situations like this for many, many years. They've personally viewed the property, tested what kind of soil it is, which apparently is very susceptible to erosion. So again, I'll say that a more detailed plan should be submitted to this board by a registered engineer before any work is allowed to proceed. So I would submit that this application be continued until such information is provided to the board. That would be our request. Again, we're not trying to stop Mr. Delaney from having a nice backyard, but we're very concerned that, as proposed, the driveway and the water line would be in serious jeopardy. And I'd ask the board whether or not they want to entertain the experts to
Sure.
answer any questions.
Yep.
Start with
If you have them, you have the professional engineer and the arborist here?
Yes.
Okay.
So Mr. Fasendola is the engineer. Step aside.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening, Nick Fasendola from Level Design Group, licensed professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I can give you a brief description of what's provided in my memo, or I can entertain questions. I'll leave that up to the board to make that decision.
So, I already read it, and I read it here.
Correct, you went through.
But why don't you hit what you think are the key points?
Sure, some of the key points weren't summarized in the conclusion. So the main concern that I had when I reviewed the application was there was no detailed plan identifying the work area, what the proposed grading was going to be. There's no detail on that. And I know the landscaper was up here in detail that the final slope would be less than 30%, which I see to be impossible because the existing grade is over 35% currently, based on the topographic plan that was provided with the submission. So if they're going to remove material from the hill, say like this, and cut out the bottom and then regrade it, if you're not putting a wall in, you then have to make that slope steeper to level out the bottom of the slope. So I don't see any way that the final grade could be less than 30% unless a retaining wall was going to be installed, and then you pick up that grade, say from 4 feet higher, and then bring it back into the natural grade. Another concern of ours was just, as I said, the level of detail on the plan. It doesn't show the proposed grading, work limits. It doesn't, wasn't prepared by a licensed professional engineer or surveyor, so who knows what's accurate and what's not. That's why we do stamp plans and provide all our company information, and we're all registered professionals who are licensed and insured. None of that information was provided on what we call the design plan. Other concerns are about erosion and how to manage the slope once it's been cut and the vegetation removed. A landscape plan was provided for plantings around the proposed dwelling, but there was no detail by the landscape designer on plantings that would be installed on that slope, say new shrubs. We're not looking for trees, but there's specific plantings that can be installed to help hold that slope in, which is currently being held in place by the mature vegetation that is on that slope. And other concern that ties into that point is this area is in the groundwater protection district, and it's mapped in that district because these soils are sandy and gravelly. Typically when you have these sandy, gravelly soils, you have to have a large layback. So if you dig a hole, you need to make the hole very wide so it doesn't cave in when you're doing work in that type of hole. So you have a large layback area. So these soils are very susceptible to movement and erosion if they're not treated properly. So that's another concern that should be addressed in a proper engineered design plan. I know there's a concern about cost associated with that. That's a tough position to be in, but at the same time, people hire engineers to ensure things are done properly. So if you give a contractor a hand-drawn sketch and you say, hey, go build this, you don't know what they're going to get. So that's why we're recommending that a proper plan be prepared for the review of the board, town engineer, and that it contains all the standard items that would be on a typical site plan with regards to information for existing proposed grades, erosion and sediment control measures, and how they're going to treat that slope after it's excavated. And a lot of these comments, they're echoed in the town comments that were provided by the town engineer, the Conservation Commission with regards to erosion. I know the town engineer had comments about what is the exact area that's being excavated, because it's unclear from the documentation that has been provided. Tonight's the first I heard that material was going to be taken from one part of the hill and moved to another part of the hill. that's not depicted on any type of plan on what the final grade is gonna be, on what the final work limits are gonna be. So that's why we're making this recommendation. You know, as was stated before, nobody's trying to prevent the applicant from enhancing their backyard for a play area for their young kids. I have young kids myself, and I understand that that's a necessary measure that they need to do. But, you know, it should be done properly so it does not impact the abutters, and that it can all work together and function properly in that area. Take any questions that you guys may have.
Okay. So, do you know what the change in elevation is currently from the,
So from the submitted plan, I just have a small copy I included in my letter.
yeah, I've got it right here.
It looks, I counted from just counting the grade lines, 16 feet,
Okay,
and I scaled it off, and it's about 40, almost 40 feet. So that is roughly a 35% grade existing from the back of the garage, if this plan's accurate.
40
so-
feet from the base to the property line, or 40
Correct.
feet?
The
to-
corner of the garage to, so I can kind of show on
Yep,
this
no,
sketch here, right here. That's the tightest point that I measured.
Okay. Okay, so I came up with similar numbers, change in elevation, and I looked at the back because that's where I think that's where they said the excavation's gonna come from. And I came up with 14 feet, you said 16 feet. And I came up with 48 feet for that distance. But that was to the setback line. Do you know, maybe I'll have the applicant come back up, but do you know the extent that they're talking about excavation, how close it's gonna come to the property line?
So that was one of my comments. It's not clearly defined on any of these plans, even the landscape plan. There's no clearly defined grading limits. And I know they provided a quantity of 102 cubic yards, but I mean, I can't calculate that based on the information that's provided. So I don't know how that number was reached by the applicant's representative. And that is one of the criteria for this board to make their decision on the special permit. So anything over 100 cubic yards of material being disturbed. So that's something else that we would like to see quantified as part of the full design plan, have those calculations provided on the exact quantities and volumes of material that's gonna be specifically taken out of the hill and material that's gonna be brought into the site.
Okay. And my final question for now is, you mentioned the type of soil. Do you know what is the type of soil in this area?
It's Hinckley loamy sand. That's what it's classified by
Okay.
the soil surveys of the area. And, you know, you can see there's been some excavation work, and there's some photos provided in my letter, and you can see that that subsoil is sandy and gravelly. And, you know, in the letter, I did detail that there was visible movement of the embankment from the photos that were provided when that soil was left exposed. So that was another concern. And that's what originally caught the Backner's attention, was that they saw that and they said, well, if they keep cutting into the hill and leaving that soil exposed, and there's no construction phasing plan, so we don't know how long that material is going to be exposed for, it could eventually creep up and impact their driveway and water line. So that is the main concern.
Board members, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening, Board. My name is Dan Cathcart. I'm a registered consulting arborist, board-certified master arborist, and Massachusetts certified arborist. And most of what I have to say is kind of a repeat of what my colleague just mentioned as far as the erosion, and he's obviously the engineer, I'm not, and has more of those figures. My main concerns were around what the removal of the trees and the further removal of the stumps as part of the excavation might result in. Because there were two very large 36-inch pine trees that were, on the applicant's property that he removed, that are about 10 to 12 feet from the property line. And again, with some assumptions, like as I had mentioned in my report, if those stumps are pulled, during the excavation process, via backhoe, whatever it may be, those root systems on a 36-inch tree are probably running out substantial roots, 3 to 4 inches in diameter, running out about 15, 20 feet at a minimum from those stumps. So pulling those is going to kind of exacerbate that erosion problem on the hillside. Right now, those tree stumps are helping retain that hillside and prevent the erosion, along with any other vegetation on that hill. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if the excavation comes up to that point and those stumps are removed, that's going to compound the potential erosion problem by not only removing the actual root ball, but the tracer roots that are running out from that are probably running under the driveway currently. So, without knowing exactly where the excavation is planned, exact recommendations are hard to make, but something along the lines of maybe grinding those stumps instead of pulling them in coordination with an approved excavation will help to reduce that initial erosion. Because we're seeing that already in the pictures, both in the engineer's report and mine, of the existing work that was done for the garage. You can see the exposed roots, you can see erosion happening, under there as well currently. And this will just, obviously with the soil type and the percent of the grade change, it's gonna cause a lot of issues in there. And, with anything else being removed from that hillside, again, we'll just compound it. So the key is, what can we do to minimize the erosion, and both on the short term as well as the long term with a valid replanting plan to help retain that hillside and prevent that. And like we've all said, no one wants to stop this project. It's just want to make sure it's done in a way that's works for everybody and causes no damage down the future. So a lot of it's that's pretty much the main points I wanted to make within that, and would be happy to answer any questions.
So we have the plan from the applicant that shows their property bound, but we don't have, where is the driveway for 21 Briarwood Lane in relationship to the property line?
It runs right up here.
Okay.
So it comes up, starts in pretty close, tapers out a little bit, and then once you're past all this, it goes further out. But it runs almost right at the property line to start. I don't know the exact feet that it's off of that, but it's very close.
Okay, so, that would be helpful if, because it was said, I believe by the attorney, that concerned about the water service and the driveway. Whereas, do you know where the water service is?
It's actually running on this side of the driveway, on the property line side.
Okay.
Did I have it on my map? Did I have a better one in this, in this report? Oh, yeah, that's hard to see in those pictures, but. I guess I didn't have it hard to see there, but.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Cathcart?
Yeah. What are the current trees that are on your client's property, running along the driveway? What type are those trees?
There's various ones. There's actually some rhododendrons and stuff that are planted along there, smaller property line shrubs. There's maple, oak, along there, as well as pine, white pine.
The root system that you spoke about, is that doing any harm to the driveway currently?
No.
Okay. That's all I have for him. Actually, I have a question for the engineer.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep, good.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Anybody else for the arborist? Okay. Go ahead.
Do you happen to know the date of the driveway install?
I believe it was done when the house was originally constructed in the 1920s.
Okay. And it looks like from Google Maps, so this could be incorrect, but the water line was just recently cut in?
I believe that was done approximately 20 years ago from information provided to me by the property owner.
Did they disturb any of the grounds on the applicant, sorry, not the applicant, but your client's property when they put that water line in?
Did they excavate for the property, for the water line
I don't know how
install?
far the water line goes up, but if they just connected it at the end of the driveway, if they ran it the whole way? or-
No, it was run the whole length
So
of the
did they
driveway up to
disturb
the
the,
house.
the tree roots system subsurface along that driveway
I
at that
can't
time?
say for sure. I wasn't there for that work. But I'm assuming the water line was installed at a depth of 4 feet, as is required for a frost.
Have you evaluated the subsurface of the driveway to know that it would potentially be harmed by some sort of erosion potentially?
Have we
I mean,
excavated the driveway?
I don't know, have you taken an evaluation of the driveway? That was one of the concerns, is that the driveway could potentially erode over time. Are we sure that it was installed properly? And we know that the sub base was in there and dense grade compaction, lifts of whatever the case was.
That has not been done, but we do know the driveway has no current issues in that area, and it's been functioning as it should. You know, the concern here is if the material is excavated out and it's not properly stabilized, there will be movement of the driveway, the material holding up the driveway.
So part of the special permit is that we can condition the project as we see fit.
Yes.
In your recommendation, I think that we can, well, I certainly feel confident in being able to condition stabilization requirements for the proposed project. Is there something that you would like to see as, from a professional engineer standpoint, whether it be, like the town had noted, you know, loam and seed before October 15th, hay socks, anything to sort of slow that potential for erosion?
Well, to be honest, the main concern I have is that the project isn't defined on any plan. We don't know how close they're getting to the driveway. We don't know if there was a line that said, okay, well, they're gonna stay 15 feet away from the property line, 20 feet away from the property line, and then start their cutting. And the proposed grades are gonna be these grades, and we're gonna move the material over to here. There's nothing like that is defined, and that's the concern. You know, I did recommend that there be some sort of undisturbed natural buffer that's maintained at the common property line. I recommended 20 feet, but that'd be up to the discretion of the board. But it'd be hard to make those conditions without knowing what the scope of the project is and having it on paper, something more well-defined versus what has been provided, which does not show any of the proposed gradings. And this is an excavation permit. And none of the grading, proposed grades, existing grades, all that stuff is not properly defined. And I find that hard to accept for this type of application, that none of that information has been provided. And that does not give the board an opportunity to make a fair evaluation of what is going on and how any of that work would possibly impact a concerned abutter. So my recommendation is that a proper plan be prepared that shows what's there today, a single plan, what the proposed conditions will be, and then, you know, a lot of this stuff is cookie cutter. So as far as, you know, it's not gonna cost $20,000 to hire an engineer. So it's, you know, silt socks, as you said, you can condition a lot of this stuff, but there's standard notes that should be on a plan. That way, when the contractor takes the plan, he bids the job, he knows he needs to buy silt socks. He knows he needs to install jute netting on the slope, and he knows he needs to buy certain plantings to stabilize that slope. He knows he needs to use a certain type of grass seed on that slope that'll help hold that slope in. And none of that's defined. And that's the concern here. It's not that none of this could be conditioned or this project could never move forward in any type of fashion. It's that it's just not properly defined, and that's our concern.
My last final question is, I don't know the topography of the driveway. Is it sloped, pitched to the street, or is it pitched to the neighbor's house?
It's relatively flat, so it's coming straight down towards the street for the most part.
Most of the runoff would
Yeah.
enter the street
Correct.
from the driveway.
Yeah, I mean, some of it likely runs off towards the property line. It all depends on which section you're on. It's a very lengthy driveway, so it's hard to say. And, you know, part of the recommendations in my letter would be that whatever plan if a plan does get prepared, that the driveway be shown on that plan. And I believe the property owner of 21 Briarwood Lane would allow the surveyors to come on his property and locate the driveway so we can know exactly where it is. And he's had the water line dig safed, so there are markings there that show where the water line currently is. So I think all that should be added to the plan so that the board can make an informed decision on how to properly condition this type of project.
Thank you. That's all I have.
So I just looked up Hinckley soil type and as far as erosion hazard. And according to the soil survey for Norfolk and Suffolk counties, it is a slight erosion hazard, and the levels are, looks like there's moderate and severe, so that's what Hinckley soil is. Because I didn't see it in either of your reports specifically. What is the erosion hazard for Hinckley soil? Did you, either of you have that in your report?
I believe I referenced some of the recommendations and restrictions or that they put together with that soil type as far as limitations, what you can do with it, and
Yeah, like equipment limit, I'm looking at equipment limitations and erosion hazard. And for Hinckley soil, it says slight erosion hazard.
There was some reference in mine too when I pulled out information on the whether you're, like you need with the laybacks and what you can do with slopes on trenching and things like that due to the erosion pieces. So there is, because there's a couple different types of Hinckley, if I'm not mistaken.
There's Hinckley B, C, and Hinckley D.
I think this is B. It's been a while, but it's in
I
there
have the
somewhere.
advantage, I'm looking at it right here.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Perhaps there's comments for discussion with the board, but
What-
no. I mean, I think there's a,
Yeah.
This, I don't know if I'm looking at the same thing, but this is from the USDA's soil surveys, and it pulled out some of the details about it, about, you know, what the limiting factors for certain things are and stuff with that. So that's in that.
That's what I'm looking at, right here, the soil survey. So Hinckley, it is,
Hinckley Loamy. This is 245C.
okay,
Anyway, that's in my report,
Yeah,
if you
we've
want
got
to
the
look
report,
further,
yeah.
so, thank you.
thanks. And he's referencing page 10 in his report. Okay,
If I may,
Yes.
just quickly, thank you.
go ahead.
I'm looking at the planting plan that was uploaded from the application, and there's no indication on that plan relative to any planting proposed for the slope, nor any information on what trees are gonna be removed what trees are gonna remain, if any. And that, to us, is really key, not to mention the location of existing stumps and whether or not they're gonna be removed, and if removed, in what fashion, and what effect that would have on the potential for erosion. I thank the board. I would answer any questions if I could, but I certainly defer to the experts, and ask the board to consider their recommendations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is the applicant, at least I've got a couple questions.
We need to better define this, because that was, so this is obviously a landscape plan for the property.
I'm sorry, it's my hearing, if you would. I'll come a little closer.
So I think the areas that they're talking about that are in question are two separate areas. So the area we're talking about is over here. I don't have the scale on me, but I don't think that's a 40% grade. Sure, up here, I would agree with that comment, but that's not the area we're even discussing. It's area that's well off 20 feet off the driveway, off the property line. It's well outside the setback. It's a lot lower area that's got nothing to do with where that driveway is. So I don't know if that's just assumed why I think they're occurring, but from what the maps you have, there's in there talking about stabilizing that hillside, putting compost stocks and silt fence up, and just basically division that has to be stabilized soil. That's perfectly fine and normal. But I think the big misconception here is that they're talking about two different areas.
Okay. So,
I think one of the challenges we have as a board, and everybody has really, is where is the area of excavation? What's the limit of the work? And it's not shown on the plan.
Right, correct. And I
so-
get that. Just trying and.
No, I understand.
Not spending $7 grand to hire a civil engineer and have a landscape designer come up with that. And we can certainly note that on the plans where the location is.
Well, I think that a lot of the questions might be answered or become non-issues if we understood that a little bit better. If it really is 30 feet from the property line, maybe we have less concern about the driveway and the water line. If these two large, stumps from the pines are not in the area to be excavated, or if there's a commitment to leave them in place, that would affect things. So there's a lot of uncertainty about the scope of the project, or not the scope necessarily, but the location and how things will be moved around. So, and one of the application requirements is to show the area and limits of the work. So I appreciate the fact that it's, you don't want to spend a fortune putting up the plans, but I think in the absence of knowing sort of where the excavation is and how extensive it will be, its proximity to the property line, it's really difficult to make reasonable decision.
Right, completely understandable. I guess the big question would be, is a landscape designer able to locate where that area of excavation is going to be rather than hiring a civil engineer?
I mean,
With the board's permission, I would just have a quick question for clarification on what's being
okay,
said.
go ahead.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Mike?
There were two large pine trees that were cut, so there's now, well, a 4 or 5 foot stump. Those are within about, I'm gonna say 10 to 12 feet of the driveway. So are they gonna be removed?
No. No, that's over here, correct?
Unfortunately, with our neighbors' assumptions and the professional assumptions without actually speaking to me and just bypassing me coming right to the board, they don't understand what it is that I'm trying to do. They don't understand where I was trying to go. I'm a fairly reasonable man. All they had to do was knock on my door. I would have gladly gone over all the plans with them. They chose not to. The plan is to not touch the stumps at the top of that behind the garage. That's all staying. I don't need any space back there. I don't care about that space. To me, it's dead space. It doesn't matter. What matters to me is in this area right here, to make this area, so to excavate the area here, to move this material from here into the lower part of the yard, and truck in a little bit more material so I can have a suitable backyard for my family. I have no desire to disturb my neighbor's driveway. I have no desire to disturb their water line. I have no desire to cause them any malice or extra work that needs to be done. That's not what I'm doing. And that's why I'm staying as far away from here as I can and just working in this area right here.
Okay. So, what Bob Fitzgerald talked about is, what is the scope of the work? I understand what you just said, and now the question is, okay, so what is the limit of the area you're going to excavate? Is it within 20 feet of the property line, or is it within,
It's well over 20, and
Well,
we can
okay.
right, I get your
So-
saying. Certainly put that into the plans. It's just, I guess the big question is,
So
do
the-
you have to have it civil put that in the plans?
well, we're already talking about the plan that's here, we just don't, we don't know exactly what you're doing. We're used to dealing with plans that show either before or after, or this is the area that we're going to work in. So I think that would be helpful, and that's just what you want, right?
Yeah, and and you've heard some of the other concerns about sort of the post-excavation stabilization in terms of, picking a grass to put out there or whatever, so that it can be evaluated in a way that makes people comfortable. That's, without some more specifics, I think it's just really difficult to, reach a conclusion.
Because the other thing that the zoning board could do is grant you permission, grant you the special permit and put in conditions that, such as, no excavation within, I'll just pick a number, 20 feet, because that's the line on this plan that we're looking at. No excavation within 20 feet of, the property, and we already talked about the slope of a 30% slope, nothing greater than 30%. If we gave that as a condition, then you have to meet it, and I don't know, we don't know how close you plan on coming to the property line.
And I get that it's not labeled on here, which makes sense. But yes, if you want to have those conditions in there, that's perfectly understandable. That has to be met, but everything we're doing is outside the setback.
Okay, everything's outside the 20-foot setback? Okay, and that's. Okay, anybody else have questions? Judy?
I just have a comment. This is a request for a special permit for excavation or filling. I'm just not getting it, because excavating means you're taking dirt out, and filling means you're bringing dirt in. The applicant appears to me that he wants to just move the dirt around that he already owns that's inside his own property line. So I guess I'm not getting, I do get why he wants to do this, because of the evidence that's been brought forth. However, to me, he has a right to do this, and I do get, he could definitely outline a little bit more on that map. And if we could see it, I think we could get a better handle on it. But I'm still confused as why
So
it's.
the bylaw was designed, that's what, just so everybody knows, when I saw this case, I know that there used to be a gravel operation sort of behind this property where Walpole Park South is now. And my thought was, is this trying to do a gravel operation? And then I realized, no, this is not a gravel operation. This is a leveling a backyard. So the question is, what is the scope of the work? The bylaw is, just so we're clear, the bylaw is designed for people that are running gravel operations, not filling in your backyard.
But there is a definition of excavation or filling, and it does include grading that occurs for uses other than mining and quarry operation. So I think that, I agree that probably the intent originally was to deal with the excavation and removal type stuff, but there's a whole separate section on removal in the bylaw that's separate from the one we're talking about. And I think the definition is broad enough to encompass grading, like what seems to be proposed here.
Excuse me, but also as an aside, if Mr. Delaney wanted to build a deck on the back side of his house, I'm gonna guess right now he could not do that because of the contours of the land. If he was just building a deck and got a permit for a deck, he would be able to prepare, almost in the same fashion, his lot to put the deck up with a simple building permit, according to Mr. Crowley. So, I mean, we're making like, I don't want to use mountain out of a molehill, but I will. It's not a commercial operation. It's someone who wants to terrace is in here, terrace his yard, so we can put up a play set.
I agree.
So
I think
I
the
would
100
hope that we can,
Yeah, I think the 100
smooth
cubic
it
yard
over.
limit was probably put in to,
It was
yeah,
that, and I think it was the foot grade changes I talked to Tim Crowley.
yeah.
yeah, all right,
Yeah.
okay.
So, Bob, and other board members, is it necessary for them to come back with you can even put it on this plan and we'd know, a revised plan to show exactly what areas are being excavated and what, what areas are being excavated. Because right now, we could condition it, but I think the board runs a risk of conditioning something that somebody's not able to meet, such as if we say no excavation within the 20 feet of the property line. And you've said verbally you're gonna, is that?
So, yeah,
It's well outside the setback, though.
it's well outside the setback, and Mike's been in town, he's a pretty reputable landscaper, he kinda knows what he's talking about here. If he's saying it's within the setback, then it's within the setback.
But yeah, again, happy to represent that on the plan. I guess my big question was if you had to incur the cost of hiring a civil engineer to bring in versus as an architects and designers, put that
So
into the plan ourselves.
we're not gonna give you any advice as far as what you need, we're not gonna give you legal advice on
Just
something.
didn't want to have to go through the
But,
procedure to get
and,
shut down.
and I'm not saying you have to, but what I'm saying is, we can either condition it, or you can come in with a plan showing what you wanna do, and taking a landscape plan and drawing the area of work
Understood.
is, one option.
Just my view is I think it's really hard to condition it in a way that's gonna be meaningful without I don't think it has to be, a full civil engineering package. But defining the scope of the excavation, what the final grading will be, the proximity to the driveway and the post excavation planting, all the things that are designed to kind of prevent future erosion. Just identifying what those things are, I think would go a long way to addressing some of the neighbors' concerns, and maybe there won't be any issues after you've shown it, because they'll be like, oh, well, that's much further away than we thought it was, or something like that. I don't know what the result of that will be, but I think working with something just a little bit more specific and with a little bit more detail would facilitate things a lot. Because I even if it's 30 feet away, I don't know sitting here if that's safe or subject to erosion. I don't know what the resulting slope will be. I don't know a lot of details that I think are relevant.
Okay. So one of your options would be to continue the hearing, you're the applicant, continue the hearing and come back with a revised plan that shows the scope of the work, the area. Is that, are you wondering? Okay. Do board members want anything else from either the applicant or the neighbor as far as information?
Well, just to reiterate, like the area to be excavated, sort of the post-excavation slopes, I think would be important, and the post-excavation plantings that you have prepared, and there was a specific question about the two pines. just confirmation that those are not to be disturbed or something, you know, would be helpful.
Yes.
Could you prepare an existing condition plan? Because I think that's what that is, or it tried to be, and then the proposed.
So this plan is based off of what you had for your garage, correct, as a survey? It's not a super detailed plan like we normally have for a landscape. We can certainly update it. There's obviously grades in this location, but if you wanted to have us locate all the trees, obviously that's a lot more work. We certainly could, if that's necessary, as far as trees that have to be removed or going to be removed.
No, first off, we're not gonna design your project, we always say, we're not gonna design your project. But if you show the area that's going to, where trees are going to be removed, and, you know, the slope that you would expect the final grade to be, that gives us the information that we need to know, so that, you know, we could, if allowed, we could condition this.
Right. No, that makes sense. Understood.
Do you want anything else?
I think it'd just be helpful if you define that slope and you add a note as to what the plan is gonna be to stabilize it during construction until it's fully stabilized. It would just bring clarity to myself, sorry. So that we're not implementing conditions that you would already have answered.
Would there be any opposition, say nothing was excavated out whatsoever, material was just trucked in? I assume we wouldn't be having this conversation. Is that also just gonna require a special permit, correct? Anything over 100 yards trucked in?
I'm sorry.
What was that?
I forget what he said.
So in lieu of excavating any part of the hill, which apparently is a big issue here, is there a way that Mike can arrange to have material trucked in, you start to level the backyard and leave the hill alone?
So, that's interesting, because then you wouldn't even be before us, probably.
Yeah, it'd be over 100 change of grade of the yard.
So it's for the change of grade in the yard. Everything that we've heard from the neighbor, and I'll ask the applicant's attorney, the neighbor's attorney. If they were to leave the slope intact, does that alleviate your concerns?
Of course. Of course, nobody wants to deprive Mr. Delaney and his family of a nice backyard. The concern is the erosion of the slope after the cutting. And I would suggest whether it's 20 feet from the property line or 30 feet, there would need to be, according to our experts, evidence via engineering reports as to what the potential erosion would be and what the mitigating measures are going to be undertaken. We'll leave the hill alone. What he does in his backyard is one of the members pointed out, that's his business. We have no problem with his grading his backyard. It's the erosion of the hill that's actually happening, but the future excavation and what that would cause in terms of erosion under the driveway and the water line. Leave the hill alone, we're happy.
Okay, well, again, then I guess the question is, what is the hill? Because, if he starts excavating and at 250 feet elevation, this is strange. This is strange. So, do you want to, what do you want to do? Do you want to continue the case and provide, so the board can see the area of work, or what?
Yeah, we can just have that discussion before grade stakes up and just give him a better idea of what his options are. And then either decide to fill it in, if that's sufficient for his needs, or if we want to continue with where we're gonna excavate and how it would affect property at all.
So it's because question
I
of
can't
grade.
answer those questions for him, as I'd
Yeah.
rather just show him in the field how things are gonna be adjusted if he just fills it in versus being able to cut the hillside, regrade, and what is different backyard, option 2 versus option 1.
Okay. Do you think that solves your questions?
I mean, if that's something that you would contemplate, I mean, I don't know the cost of bringing it in versus spreading it around may be different, and so those are obviously things you have to consider. I mean, but ultimately, it's still, we have to have a defined area where the work will be performed, I think, before we can, make decisions.
And not to the level of, at least me, I don't need to know every tree that's coming down, but we need to know
The area.
the area, and we can see what the existing grade is, and then, what your proposed grade is. And again, I don't think it, requires huge plans, but it does require us to understand what the area of work is going to
Understood.
be. Anything else? Okay.
I would just take exception to your comment that we don't need to know what tree is gonna be removed, because I think that's critical to an analysis of whether or not
Say that.
the removal of this vegetation is going to cause undue erosion.
But, so, if the applicant wants to go in and cut down every tree on his lot, he has the right to do that. And,
Unless it's gonna damage the neighboring property.
no, he has the right to cut every tree on his lot. The issue would be if.
From a zoning perspective, we're talking
Right.
totally as the zoning board.
Right. As the zoning board, we're looking at the fact that it's involving excavation. So, tree removal as it relates to changing the slope, that's part of what we would look at. But as far as cutting trees, people have the right to cut trees on their property.
No question. But the question becomes, will the cutting cause damage to the neighboring property? And I think that is within the purview of the zoning board,
Okay.
based
But-
on 5D, 6, C and D.
But that's because that involves excavation of fill. Without excavating the fill, there's no issue with cutting trees. I can cut every tree on my lot if I want.
Right, we're talking about removing the stumps,
Hey.
roots.
No, we're talking about removing soil.
Yeah.
That's why we're here. Right? People can cut their trees.
Yeah.
I understand.
Removing it.
It's the
So to my point, and you were saying that you disagreed, but my point is, we don't need to know every tree that's coming down. What we need to know is the area where this work is going to take place.
I think that's a minimal requirement, frankly.
Okay. Are there any other things that we want the applicant to have for next time? Okay. Okay, do you want to continue this case?
That's fine.
Okay. What's the next available date?
July 20th or August 17th.
Okay, what would do you need a lot of time? or-
20th,
Okay,
get rolling on this project.
okay. July 20th. Okay, could I have a motion to continue this case until July 20th, 7:00 PM here at Town Hall at the request of the applicant?
So
Okay,
moved.
Hold on.
If there's gonna be a new plan submitted, I'd ask that it be submitted in advance of the hearing,
Okay,
please.
if,
What's in advance consist of, like a day before? Or
no, we usually like to have things a week before.
Week before
That's
the
when we
hearing.
get all our information, so can get,
So the Friday before is not good enough?
no, we'd like it a week before.
I see.
And what we're asking for is to identify the area of work on this.
I just want to make sure my timing is correct.
And if you, that's why I asked you if you wanted the next.
No, that's fine, I just want to make sure that I submit my plans
Yes,
in the appropriate timeframe.
a week before the meeting, so the Wednesday before.
Is
the
that
meeting.
any correspondence with the board is supposed to be a week before?
What's that?
Any correspondence with the board is supposed to be a week before?
We like it like that,
Typically,
yeah.
yes.
I
We-
see.
We prefer it like that, and it also gives the board time to review it before the meeting and any other interested parties.
I see. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, so moved Somebody want to second it? Okay, second by Drew. Any further discussion on continuing the case? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay,
Thank you.
good night. See you next month. Next case is case number 22-9, Briarwood Development, 51 Boston Providence Highway, special permit under zoning bylaws, section 5B1 4PII of the zoning bylaws to allow modification of an existing drive-through at the site. Another drive-through. This is the Dunkin' Donuts in East Walpole. Okay, let's see what we have for. This goes back to 1989. We have a letter from Deputy Chief from the Fire Department, Paul Barry, regarding the special permit. We offer no objections to the request. 2, we recommend that the applicant install a monitored fire alarm system during the building renovation process. We have a letter from the Board of Health. The Health Department has no issues with this special permit request. Okay. Do we have anything from, are there any wetland issues on this?
No, no wetlands here.
It's not within the wetland?
No work is being done in the, there's riverfront area on the very kind of northward end of the site, but we're not doing any work there.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a letter from, we have a letter from the town engineer, Carl Baldoff, and there were a few comments on this, and it talks about the plan review and his comments. So, let me just hit his comments. Have you seen these?
I have.
Okay, so plan should call out the removal of the existing guardrail and curb on the south side of the building, and likely the removal of at least one 24-inch oak tree. 2, showing existing parking spaces along the easterly boundary. You know, this is just dated yesterday. Have you had a chance to address any of these issues from the
I
town
haven't
engineer?
had a chance to update the plan.
Okay,
There's nothing on there that requires a significant amount of change to the plan,
okay.
mostly
So-
notes.
So why don't, it'll probably be, we don't need to read this whole thing in, to the record, but, you know, we wanna make sure all these comments get incorporated into the plan. Okay, so why don't you explain what's there, what you plan on doing, and what this is about?
Okay, good evening. For the record, Dan Merriton with Legacy Engineering here on behalf of the applicant. We've submitted a request for a special permit modification under 5B13G with an existing Dunkin' Donuts with an existing drive-through lane. That was a permit issued back in '89, I believe, 89, 90. So right now, we have the building that faces Route 1, 3 driveway entrances, and there's an existing single-lane drive-through around the back of the building. Queues up, there's an order board here, and then you drive up a little slope to a single order window, and then you pull out. So what the applicant would like to do is to modify the site. Small addition to the building, 573 square feet of net increase, basically to make it a dual window configuration, like you see on most of the new Dunkin' Donuts. So they're gonna take the existing window out, and they're gonna add one further to the back of the building, and then there'll be a bump out in front, which is primarily to accommodate a pickup window right there at the front edge. The second thing that they would like to do is to put in a double drive-through lane. So we would reconfigure this parking area, kind of push these parking spaces a little bit closer to Route 1, still in compliance with the bylaw, and then configure this back area so that there'd be a double drive-through lane, 2 order boards, and then that would combine into a single lane, and then we would also propose to add an escape lane as you come around the corner of the building, which there isn't one presently. So this is a landscape area in here. So as part of that work, we would take 2 existing parking spaces and just slide them back to make room for this escape lane. So the network, presently there are 30 existing parking spaces. There'd be 28 at the end of this. We only need 6 for the number of seats in the restaurant. So we have ample parking. The existing, we provided you with a queuing analysis from our traffic consultant. Basically outlines that in the existing condition, queuing in the peak AM busy periods gets out to just about Union Street. And that when we, it makes sense that when we double up drive-through lane, it just provides that much more room. There's room for about 13, 14 cars to queue presently. When we double up the drive-through lane like this, it would go up to 23, 24 parking queuing spaces. So the overall conclusion of the consultant was that we're not going to see a significantly increased amount of traffic at the drive-through. It's just basically going to allow for smaller queues, and that wouldn't end up being queuing in the morning peak hours that would get out to the edge of Union Street. That's it in a high level. As I say, we're moving some parking spaces around. We're adding a little stormwater management here. Discussed that with the town engineer. That's reflected on the plan. And that's the only other, one of the comments the town engineer made was about, we have parking spaces here in the present condition, very similar to what we're proposing, and they're tagged as employee parking spaces because during the busy AM hours, they're gonna be impacted by the drive-through lane, which is what they are now. It's the same configuration right now. We have a drive-through lane, this is a little loading area, so these are tagged as employee parking spaces. The applicant needs those parking spaces for their employees. They want to maintain those parking spaces, so they would be for employee use only and not for customers who might visit the property. And they can, obviously they can schedule their employees in a manner where they'll be able to get in early before the rush, the morning rush, and then not have to leave work during the morning rush. And the town engineer wanted some notes, had a question. There's 2 24-inch trees in this area where we're proposing to install the escape lane, so those trees would be removed. I can add a notation to the plan. There's an existing guardrail in that area that would be removed as well. And I can add a notation to the plan to that effect.
So with the removal of that tree, is anything else going in there, and the guardrails you said the guardrail's coming out too?
Yeah, there's not really a reason for the guardrail. I mean, the grading here is steady with the slope of the drive-through lane, so I don't honestly.
But when you go, it comes up from the back, right? I mean, it's a steep.
The other thing that we're doing,
This is,
presently.
if you know, this is not a level, this is not a level drive-through.
Well, I'm talking side to side, right? So if you look at. So.
Can you pull that screen this way a little?
Yeah.
Does it move? Sorry, I can't see under there. That's good.
All right.
Thank you.
So presently, this is all kind of moderately sloped, and then you come around the corner, most of you have been there. You come around the corner, the drive-through lane is, fairly steep coming up to the drive-through window. So one of the things that we're proposing to do is to build a short retaining wall here along the property line with a wood guardrail there, and then make this a much more gradual approach up to the drive-through lane. So we do have a guardrail proposed along this side and then ending here. There's presently a guardrail through here. As you look at the grades adjacent to the drive-through lane up there, they're the same or similar elevation as the drive-through lane. The grades are coming up the same as the drive-through lane. I certainly could add a guardrail in here if that's something that was a concern. There's not gonna be anything in here except the landscape area. I don't see the need for a guardrail there. It's not dropping off in grade adjacent to that escape lane. You know, the landscape areas will be at the same grade as you're coming up with the drive-through lane. And we're gonna, again, we're proposing to basically take this corner area here and just raise it a couple of feet so that, you know, that approach to the window is much less sloped than it is today. This makes for a more comfortable experience.
Don't want to spill a cup of coffee on your lap.
That's right.
Just logistically, with the additional window, what is that? Is that a separate place? Like, are you gonna pay at the first one, pick up at the second one, or how, what is the?
Bill Blue-Apples, one of the owners. The first window will be used mostly on peak time, just to pay, they can pay there.
Okay.
And then after they pay, they go to the next one and pick it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then during, like, you know, off-peak hours, it will be just be the window in the second window.
Okay.
That's everything.
The one on Common
Thanks.
Street has that arrangement. I've never actually seen the first window used, or it's never been in use when I've been there.
No.
Can you explain what an escape lane is?
It's just an opportunity if somebody is coming around here and they decide that they don't wanna order something for some reason, they don't have to wait through the entire queue and get through the window to leave. They can come around the corner and just drive by the people waiting in the queue to pick up their food and pay. It's a nice feature to have. It's not a necessity, but again, it's like if you're sitting in the line and you, for whatever reason, decide you don't want to buy something, you can drive out without having to wait the entire way through.
So at no point the people going to the first window will be escaping, getting their service and trying to,
No, because the food pickup will be at
okay,
the second window.
gotcha, thank you.
It looks like you're also adding some outside dining area compared to
Yeah.
the existing.
Yeah, so
Can you
there's an
describe that?
existing landscape strip in here. So one of the things that they would like to do is just basically do a little concrete patio area here with an outside dining area.
And also, there's a new part of the building right next to the drive-through.
There's a ramp, so they're gonna build, there's a loading dock there. So this right here, this piece right here is an existing, like, truck level loading dock.
Actually, I'm talking about the front of the building where it says proposed building addition of 573 square feet.
That's where the front window will go. Yep.
Okay, it looks like, so what are the, I see 3 bump outs.
This
Yeah.
is the front, this one's going away. That's
Oh.
the current window.
Okay, so that goes.
That goes away. So
Okay.
this is the first window, that's the second window.
Very good, okay, thank you. Anything else? So, Patrick, I know you have some, we talked about the sidewalk. Did you read the comments from the town engineer on the
Yeah,
sidewalk?
I've spoken with the town engineer, and I've spoken with the applicant. And the applicant is willing to retain me to prepare a plan showing a sidewalk, you know, in this stretch, and to submit an application to Mass DOT on the town's behalf. I mean, obviously, the town is gonna have to provide me with a lot of information to make that happen, and it's gonna have to participate in that process, because the town will be the applicant. But the applicant's willing to engage me to prepare the plan and submit the application to Mass DOT.
Okay, and that's being a good neighbor. and we're gonna have a sidewalk that goes from Union Street to Route 1, so
Right.
that would be helpful. So that would be a condition of any decision if granted.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Isn't that section of the entrance in Norwood?
It is.
Okay, so I noticed you did know, I noticed you noticed the Norwood abutters. Are you going before any boards in Norwood for this?
No, we're not doing any work in Norwood as part of this work. All the work we're doing is in Walpole.
Okay,
The sidewalk, what we're talking about, will be a separate plan that the town's proposing to do. So it's like my client's basically gonna pay me to prepare a plan for you. And then the
Good.
town is gonna use that plan to
Okay.
seek their Mass DOT permit. And presumably, the town will have to go to probably the Norwood Conservation Commission to obtain a permit from them. So they would use my plan to do that as well.
okay, so you don't have to do anything with DOT for anything on Route 1?
No, we're not changing any of the
You're
driveway
not changing the
entrances.
driveways, no change.
So this would be a separate thing that
Okay.
we would prepare for the town's use for the sidewalk. And obviously, I'll need guidance from Carl about exactly what they want to propose.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if I can continue.
Yep.
You mentioned a retaining wall almost directly on the
Lot line.
plot line, which is one of our next cases, at 295 Union. Do you have any details about how you'll handle the disturbance of, or the potential disturbance of their line, your filling and your,
Well, we're
or
gonna
your
build a short
grading?
retaining wall of a couple of feet, like a foot off the lot line. And then there'll be a guardrail on top of that
Okay,
and a fence. So we would not disturb.
you're not
295
going into 295
Union
at all?
Street at all.
Okay.
no.
All right. And as you said earlier, the conservation not required, but is this work being done in the floodplain?
So it's drawn on the map as being a floodplain. I've discussed this. I am going for a request for determination of applicability to the Conservation Commission.
Okay,
The floodplain maps here show this property as being in a Zone A, no established flood elevation. But the areas that we're working on are anywhere from 2 to 7 feet higher than the established 100-year flood elevation for the brook. And that elevation is established at the center of Union Street, 50 feet from where we're working. So the maps, although they say we're in a Zone A, the Dunkin' Donuts is on a hill. It's not, in my opinion, it's not subject to flooding. So that's why we're going to see the
you're
Conservation
gonna check
Commission.
with conservation?
To get
Okay.
a determination of applicability on that topic.
And finally, so there's really no change to the grading to the drive-up, the pay and the pickup window area? Still the mountain climb?
Well, no, we're gonna soften
Soften it?
the slope
Okay.
up to the pavement pickup area.
Okay.
That's part of the purpose of that little regrading area there.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay. Just on the impervious coverage, I see you're below the 90%, but can you just sort of show what's gonna remain impervious after this is done? And are there any vegetated areas that are not designated snow storage area? Or are they sort of overlapping?
Well, so, this existing landscaping is gonna stay, this is existing landscaping that will stay, this is existing landscaping that we're gonna pave, this is existing landscaping that we're gonna pave. There's an existing island in here that's crushed stone. So we're gonna reconfigure that island, and this island actually ends up being bigger than the existing landscape island. So, in the aggregate, we're adding about 900 square feet of impervious coverage. We've provided a stormwater report to the planning board as part of site plan review, just demonstrating that the new stormwater management systems are mitigating that small increase in impervious coverage.
So as far as impervious coverage, you think you're at 83%? Is that what you're showing?
The existing is 81.2, and we're at 83.4 after the proposed work.
Okay, so you're actually increasing,
Increasing, but below the 90% allowed.
right?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Just
go
a
ahead.
question on the parking. In the original decision, it mentioned areas that were designated for vehicles that were too large to fit in the parking spaces, and looked like it was towards Route 1, like the trucks, the big trucks. Is that an area that's gonna still be somewhat designated?
Well, we have a sign that says, I think that's going in, that no large vehicles allowed in public, but they still come in.
Right.
But I don't know.
I mean, I'm thinking the box trucks and some of the trucks that won't fit in those spaces. So,
Usually what they do is they usually take up, more than one.
oh, okay.
Which is, hope they don't leave early in the morning.
Okay.
Is the generator that you're proposing to move to the corner, is that the same size as the one you currently have in the back of the building? It's the same one.
We're just gonna move it.
I noticed the menu boards are like right next, the same spot. How do you then get people to civilly merge into one lane? Like, I know the McDonald's on 1A, they stagger the menu boards so that it kind of naturally fits into one lane.
Well, I mean, this is based on a standard template for Dunkin' Donuts. This is how they like to see these kinds of configurations set up. I think that they end up, when they're taking their orders, they end up kind of alternating their ordering, so that when people, so they take an order from lane A, and then 30 seconds later, they take the order from lane B, so that they can
I was just wondering how you
kind of
merge the
weave
two
together.
lanes into one. People fighting for their coffee in the morning.
Okay. So I know you're gonna go to conservation, you're before the planning board also on this?
Tomorrow night.
Okay.
Conservation next week. So I have a few minor plan changes to make. I can't be here at the next meeting in July because I'm gonna be out of state, but I think it's fairly straightforward. I mean, if it's okay with the board, I think the applicant might wanna just come, and if they can handle any questions you have, they could be ready to close, or if they have to continue it one meeting further because they need me, they can certainly do that.
Yeah, that's actually, at least I think we're at like the 90%, 90-something% solution on this. If you can update the plan, taking into consideration the comments from the town engineer. Does anybody have any other things that they want to see on this plan?
I'd love to see a few trees if you could squeeze them in somewhere, but I know you're not required to do that, but,
Okay.
it's very much, a paved zone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I could get a couple of trees or a tree or two in here. There's an existing grease trap and septic tank here, so I don't have a lot of room to do anything there, but I'll look for some opportunities at a future date.
Like you said, it's not a requirement, but.
No, it's not a requirement. That's why I'm asking if not requiring.
There's two big trees, I believe, right there by the drive-through that are coming out. And then it's a pretty bare site after that, so, yeah, if you can figure something out, it'll make it nicer for everybody, but we leave that to you. Anything else? Just take, and the comment from, I wanna make sure the sidewalk part is done, so let's make sure you have an understanding of, in, the plan, what's necessary for the sidewalk, and then that would be part of our decision to, that one of the conditions would be that the applicant would engage you to, or somebody, not, we won't say you, but,
Say me.
for the sidewalk, so that we can get the sidewalk out to Route 1.
Yeah, maybe Mr. Shane can just propose some language on that, so we could take a peek at it before the next meeting. Well, obviously, we can't guarantee Mass DOT is gonna give you a permit, but
Right.
we'd do whatever we can within reason to
Right.
help the town.
Are you comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, we could work on the language now, or if the board wishes to continue.
We don't need to. I'd rather have you figure out what's gonna work, and then we can review that before the next
Sure.
meeting.
I do just kind of want to caution, just looking ahead, we have about, I think between, depending on the 40B projects, between 6 and 8 cases for July 20th already.
I actually think this is pretty
Okay.
pretty straightforward. I appreciate the work that's gone into it. I was hoping that we might be able to close tonight, but after seeing the town engineer's comments, those are just small things.
Yeah.
Get those incorporated into the plan and we should be good.
Yeah, I'll get those to you next week.
That's why I asked, does anybody have anything else they want to see on the plan?
Did you have those ballards that we just made the other drive-up window do to keep the cars from running into the buildings? Are they anywhere on the plan?
Yes, I have a bollard proposed in
Bollard,
front
okay.
of the corner of each drive-up window, and then also at the menu boards, and the corner of the existing loading dock, and the corner of the existing freezer, so they're called out on the plan.
Okay, and then they're not required to be anywhere out front where cars are pulling in?
There are existing bollards out there,
They're all already there, okay, all right. Okay, I didn't see them.
all along the front.
Okay. So, do you want to continue, make the changes, continue, but I really see that this is, I think it's a good plan. I've seen the queues in the morning, and I haven't seen it out to Union Street, but it's real close. So business must be good.
We try to move fast.
Yeah, your staff is amazing. So, okay, do you want to continue until
July 20th.
July 20th?
Please.
Okay. Could I have a motion to continue until July 20th, 7 o'clock here at Town Hall at the request of the applicant?
Second.
Moved by Tim, second by Judy. All those in favor of continuing, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you. Good luck with that, but we'll see you next time, or not you. We'll see somebody. Okay, next we have case number 22-16, 295 Union Street. This is special permit under zoning bylaws, section 11(3)B of the zoning bylaw to allow building and site improvements in the floodplain protection overlay district. So, as far as comments, let's see.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, I believe we got comments from town engineering as
Yeah,
well as
I'm
the health
looking.
departments. Should be in that large, the map itself.
This package.
That's for you. Yep.
There we go. Okay. So I'm gonna just, before I turn it over to you, I'll read the comments from the different boards. So we have a letter from Carl Baldoff, town engineer, dated yesterday, and he offers some comments dealing with conservation. He has already provided 7 comments. Second point, we expect that revisions will occur because this is still before conservation. Your plan shows cuts and fills in the floodplain. And the exhibit demonstrates that there is a net increase in compensatory storage. And 4, the board should be aware that the Economic Development Director obtained, okay, this also has to, this
Same
also has to do with the
location as
sidewalk.
Union Street, yeah.
The sidewalk along Union Street, so, we wanna make sure that, we consider the future sidewalk along Union Street. We have a letter from, That's to conservation. We have a letter from the health department. The health department has no issues with the special permit. A septic system abandonment form must be filed with the health department when the system is abandoned. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Brian McCarthy. I'm with R.J. O'Connell Associates. We're the civil engineers for the project. And with me this evening is John Metter of Casco Real Estate, who's the property owner. So what I'd like to do, if you would like me to, is just go over the existing condition and then talk about the proposed project. So 295 Union Street, site's located in the Highway Business District and in the floodplain protection overlay district. The existing uses on the site, warehouse type uses are allowed by right in that zone. The site itself is approximately 16 acres in area, and a majority of the site consists of wetland areas and riverfront resource areas. The dark areas on this plan represent the wetland limits. And as you can see, on the white in the buildings, the majority of this upland area is paved area for parking and for circulation drives around the site. There's two buildings on the site. The existing buildings are closest to Union Street. We have a 24,500 square foot building that's currently occupied by Sunbird Transportation. And then the rear building is approximately 60,000 square feet. It's an existing warehouse building that is currently vacant. This application is for renovations to that existing 60,000 square foot building. And renovations because it's within that floodplain area. The flood zones on this property are, there's a few different flood zones. There's a zone AE, a zone AO, and a zone A. The zone AE is off, it comes onto the property in this area here, but it's mainly off the property, associated with Trap Hole Brook. The floodplain elevation in the AE zone at the brook is approximately 106. And then the flood zone AO and zone A don't have any established flood elevations. But the AE zone, which follows the brook and comes back to the front of the site along Union Street, the flood elevation at this driveway is elevation 96. So there's a significant change in the flood elevation as it follows the brook from 106 over here to elevation 96 at the front. In comparison to that, the existing building floor elevations.
Could I just ask you a quick question, just to make sure I'm following? If you're saying the elevation is higher at the brook itself than it is.
So the brook, the topography is higher over here.
Right.
And so the flood elevation is much higher over here. It's a 106.
Yeah.
But as you follow the brook this way, the floodplain
Okay.
elevation actually follows
I
the
see, I see.
topography in this case.
Okay, I understand that.
It's 96 at the front.
I'm with you now. Okay.
And so the floor elevation of this building is elevation, there's a couple of different elevations on the floor, but it's like 98.5 to 99. And then the floor elevation of the rear building here is it's approximately elevation 108. And so, so the site rises from Union Street towards the back, 97 in the street, goes up to the back to like 107 in the back area there. In addition to the paved areas on the site, parking and access, there's truck parking out here and there's car parking, but a large area of the site over here is a hard-packed gravel surface that's currently used for parking trucks and cars. And there's another gravel parking area in the front of this building, which is currently used for its maneuvering area for trucks that are backing in and out of these existing loading docks. And then another item on this existing condition is the existing parking in this location here. That's actually a leased parking. It's part of this property, but it's leased to the 99 restaurant. And then there's a lease agreement with Tesla cars for car storage on the property as well. Just from any access to the property, there's 2 curb cuts. There's one here and one here, access off Union Street. In terms of stormwater runoff and management for the existing condition, it's divided into 2 watersheds. Basically, you have the east side, which is towards Route 1. Route 1 is actually on the bottom of the plan here. Dunkin' Donuts that was just up before us was right here, 99 Restaurant. The stormwater on that portion of the site is captured with a network of catch basins and a pipe network that conveys the stormwater out to the pipe network through onto Route 1. And then on the eastern portion of the western portion of the site, the stormwater there just basically is a sheet flow across the existing pavement and across the existing gravel, and it sheet flows and it goes right into the wetlands area. We're actually in front of the Conservation Commission with our improvements related to the stormwater management. So that's the existing condition. And then this plan here shows the proposed, pretty much the same parking area. I should note, and the board is probably aware, that in October of last year, the board did issue 2 special permits on this property related to the Tesla car pre-delivery use for this front building, and also for improvements to that building because it's in the floodplain.
And that's still going on. Tesla's still a tenant at this site?
Tesla still has a lease for this. So, as I mentioned earlier, this project is really focused on the proposed renovation of the rear 60,000 square foot building and site improvements associated with that. The portion of this building that's in the flood protection overlay district is basically this piece of the building right here. And the building renovation work will include an exterior a new exterior facing to the building, as well as relocation and addition of loading dock doors along the east side of the building here. Some of those existing doors will be closed and relocated. And there'll also be interior renovations to the building. There's no expansion of any of this building, it's the same footprint. There'll also be some relocation of pedestrian access doors on this as well. Improvements also include along the west side, a sidewalk all along the back of this building. There's nothing there today. There's no sidewalk, no walkway. However, there are emergency egress doors that open out onto mulch and stuff, so we want to provide a proper access from those emergency doors out to the front of the building. And then I mentioned earlier the graveled parking areas that are located in this area here. In this proposal, we are proposing to pave that graveled parking area and add in some landscape islands in that area and some trees. The difference here is the graveled parking area out there basically hugs, there's a fence out there, you'll see it if you're out there, there's a fence that hugs the wetland line, and it comes right along the edge of the property here. That's all disturbed area, gravel parking, storage, and so on. This new parking area, paved parking area, will be significantly smaller than those limits. And then the area outside of the new paved area that is currently gravel parking, that will be restored with vegetation. It'll be restored with a New England wildlife conservation mix, plantings. And as we're in the conservation process, we're also going to be adding some more plantings in that area through that process. So there'll be a significant improvement over there in terms of restoring area that's closer to the wetland and also restoring area that's within the riverfront.
Is the intention to keep the gray area pervious, or is that's gonna be paved as part of the parking?
So this gray area here would be paved area.
Paved, okay.
Right, so currently the pavement ends where the white line is.
Yeah.
Then it's all hard packed gravel. It's pretty much like pavement, but it's you know, there'll be dust and everything because of, it's just gravel. We're gonna pave that area, but again, reduce it in size from what's out there today. So, and then as part of that work, we'll be installing improvements to the stormwater management system. Stormwater management improvements will include a stormwater detention and infiltration basin in this location here. And again, this is all from the dark green to the light green. This is all that gravel parking area the trucks park now. We're gonna pull back significantly from the wetland, put in that stormwater treatment basin, and that will provide a water quality treatment and detention and so on from all the runoff that comes off the pavement over to there today. So we'll be capturing that and treating it. In fact, I'm gonna just flip it to this plan here. It's kind of, it's a part of your plan set, but it shows the detail of that stormwater basin. It also shows how this water sheet flows into it. So currently, it will include, so this design will include sediment 4 bays for treatment. Then the water will overtop those sediment 4 bays into a central area of that basin that will detain it and allow it to infiltrate and provide groundwater recharge. There is, and again, there's no treatment happening today, so this is a significant improvement over that. Other improvements that are going to occur as part of this project, there are, in addition to the new paving area at the gravel, there are some significant potholes out there on the pavement that we're going to repair those. There's a few in this main driveway, and there's a large one down in this area, so we'll be making improvements to that, fixing those areas. And we will be installing a new domestic water service line from the street into this building. The reason for that is the current water service to this building does not comply with the current codes. It's actually, there's an existing 8-inch line that comes in here today, and it separates inside the building for the domestic water. So it doesn't comply with the code. We've talked with the engineering department, the water department, and we're gonna put in a new water line to fix that situation. Also, as part of this project, there is no gas service to this building today, so we'll be installing a new gas line along that same route. You were probably aware from the previous special permit that on this building, there was a proposal to install a sewer force main, pump station and sewer force main to connect to the town system. That was part of the previous application. That still will happen as part of this work. And that septic system over here will be abandoned. One other item on electrical. There's an overhead line that runs through here. It feeds this building today, but we're gonna put in a new transformer right in this location here. A ground-mounted transformer for this building. That transformer is outside of the floodplain limits. And the work that's occurring within that floodplain, there's gonna be very minimal regrading of this area. We're pretty much gonna follow the existing grades that are out there today. And so there will be no net loss of flood storage. We did include the calculations that show that we're actually gonna increase flood storage on the site in that area. So that's an overview of the project, and be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. So, same footprint of the building, you're upgrading the building, that's the plan?
Yeah, renovating this
Yep.
building here, yep.
Is there a plan for a specific use for that building, or is it what is it?
So will continue to be a warehouse type building, and that's one of the reasons we want to add some more loading docks in here to improve it for current warehouse type uses.
Okay. Behind that building, it looks like there's a retention basin with an elevation starting at, or is that a mound? It looks like it's 106, 107. So, yeah, that's not a retention base, that's a mound, right? What
That is, yeah, it's elevated, yes. That
Okay,
is, that's just an area that's, it's matching pretty close to existing grade. It's 107 in that area generally. And we're just, because we need to create a paved access to the transformer, so we're just turning those grades on themselves and keeping that relatively the same elevation.
Okay. Over towards Union Street, this is where you have your retention basin, right? Okay. And I'm looking at the plans, I got an idea of the depth of it. What's the depth of that retention basin, do you think?
So the bottom of the space is elevation 95. The water elevation will build up to 96 and a half, a foot and a half before it spills over. But we have an elevation a little higher to make sure the water stays in there, so the elevation will go up to 98, so you're talking about 3 feet.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a big,
Right.
huge retention basin.
I should note too that, and I didn't, but we will have a guardrail around the edge of pavement there.
Okay.
To keep vehicles off that area.
I just had one sort of question. You said that you have parking for the 99 restaurant on here?
There's a lease, current lease with 99 Restaurant for these spaces over here. There's actually a fence around those today, out there, and there's an access from 99 into those parking spaces. There's about, I believe it's 44 spaces.
And so those spaces don't access from Union Street, they access from behind the 99?
Yep, you gotta come into 99 and drive right through here.
They're hardly utilized, but yeah, the access.
Yeah, I never knew that, so, okay.
You mentioned the other block of parking is leased to Tesla.
This area right here, yep.
In addition to about 10,000 square feet on the backside of that front building, just for storage
Right.
primarily.
So the additional parking that you're showing, that's intended to serve the new tenant of the new building?
That's correct, yes.
Overall, I think it's an improvement for the site. It's dated, the old site's dated, and things are, modernizing, so.
Yeah.
And you the back building, you mentioned the forced pump for the front building. Did you complete, is the back building gonna tie in?
Yes, I should have mentioned that. So today, there is a sewer line from this building that actually goes to that same existing pump that pumps to the septic system. So when we abandon this, the new pump will serve both buildings and connect out to the street.
Okay, other board members, any questions or comments?
Just a question about the truck circulation for deliveries to the warehouse. Would they would come off Union and sort of?
Yes. So.
And what are those, the 4 rectangles that are sort of closer to the loading docks there?
Yeah, so that the trucks will come straight in this way. We're leaving this as a wide area here so they can swing and back into these docks. These are concrete, they're set-down pads, so when they drop the trailer, if they leave the trailer there, they have a set-down here, and they want to set them on concrete instead of pavement because it could push the pavement through.
Yeah.
So that's what those are. So, and the circulation will be there. And they can turn here and back over here as well. We're actually, as part of this, there's some doors right down the end here, existing, that we're closing those. Access is really tough, and we're moving them back into this area.
Just one other question on the utility improvements. You mentioned the water line and the sewer. Those areas will just be regraded to their existing grade, so there's no, at the end of the day, for the utility trenching and stuff, that's all gonna be put back to its existing elevation.
That's correct. It'll match the existing grade. Yep.
Anyone else have questions or comments? So, at least I think you're in good shape. In fact, if we didn't have the comments that you're going to conservation in this plan is going to change, I'd suggest that you close tonight. And believe me, I do not want to continue another hearing, but if your plans change, you know, then you'd have to come back to us again. So, Patrick, is there any way, I mean,
Can I explain the change?
yeah.
Yeah, that might be helpful.
So, the change was really the stormwater basin. The request from the Conservation Commission was, we did, so the berm on the wetland side of that basin is still within the 25-foot no alteration zone. However, as I mentioned today, this whole area right up to the wetland line is actually a gravel parking area. So we're pulling it out and restoring that area. The request from the commission was to look at it and see if we could even pull it further out from the wetland line and restore more of that no alteration zone. And so we have looked at that and we can do that, and basically we're gonna pull it out another 10 to 12 feet in this direction. And so, and then we'll provide some more width of no alteration zone restored in that area. So that's what we're gonna be resubmitting to the commission tomorrow, actually. I didn't have a chance to get that on the plan today, but.
Yeah, so, does anybody, so,
You want to approve it subject to that?
no, I'm not comfortable
Okay.
approving something until we have the plan, but that's the only thing that's changing, that the town engineer was referencing?
Yes, yep.
You certainly could, unless you wanted to reference the exact revision date of the plan. I mean, if that's the only thing that is changing, that can be determined what the exact plan would be, or what the final submitted plan would need to be for permitting, so to speak. So obviously, you could condition that the final submitted plan, or the final approved plan, shall be compliant with the Conservation Commission's decision, so to speak. But I understand that's, if you're looking for more of a final date.
What do you think, Bob?
Well, I don't know if there are members of the public that would want to see a revised plan, but yeah, typically we like to reference in our decision, the as approved, but we could certainly, I think we could draft a condition that basically said, subject to compliance with the order of conditions or whatever. We could come up with language that would effectively say as modified by the, but to the extent that affects the calculations of flood storage and all of that stuff, it would just be nice to have the final plan, I think.
That's sort of where I come down, but that's a good point. Is there anybody from the public that wants to comment on this? Any neighbors or butters or anybody? Okay.
Would you be amenable to coming back? I mean, is a cause a big problem for you, or no?
Okay. Yep, we're amenable to that.
Okay, I just don't want to tie up our agendas, that's the other thing. But that is the best and cleanest way to do it, is to have the new plan, the revised plan submitted, so we can vote on it. But I think what you're hearing, at least from me, and probably the other board members, I like it. It's a good improvement, and it's not changing. You're not changing the footprints of these buildings, right. And overall the site and the flood control is improved on this. So still in the floodplain. Not going to change that.
Right.
So, hey, continue it. But when you come back, or you have somebody come back, we just need the updated plans. But does anybody have anything else they want to see on this?
I just had a question. Where the new sidewalk is going along Union Street, do you have any plans to do any fencing other than the chain link that's there? Just a
The
question.
fence that currently exists, then would in theory come down in association with that work. As of now, we don't have any plans to put that fence back up or
No, so, yeah, so we've agreed that we can remove that fence.
Right.
In that area, in order to facilitate the installation of the sidewalk.
I guess
So-
the short answer, not at this time.
Not at this time, okay.
Mr. Chair, I guess just related to that, I think the one comment from the town engineer, Carl Baldoff, was mostly just for a temporary 10-foot right-of-way for grading and removal of the replacement of fencing currently along the right-of-way, as well as the addition of the accessible curb cuts at the entrance of Union Street. So more or less a temporary right-of-way for the construction of the sidewalk.
Yeah. And that would be a condition in the decision.
Yeah.
You know, you guys would be okay for was it temporary?
Temporary access,
Temporary access.
within 10 feet of the right-of-way.
Yes, we definitely would. And then what we would like to do is just make sure that it's coordinated in an effort, in a way that, you know, we can provide it, given sufficient amount of time, so we know when the work's gonna happen, because there's gonna be operations and things impacted. So we'd like the wording to kind of say, you know, we'll provide that, but we need notification, maybe a 30-day notification or something, of when the work's gonna be completed.
Okay. That would be a condition.
Coordinate that.
This is all part of the site, you know, you've heard it earlier for the Dunkin' Donuts site that, you know, we're looking at sidewalk and improving the access and safety in that area. Okay. You good? Okay, yeah.
Sorry. The transformer, is that in the 25 buffer? Is that?
Yep, so the 25-foot is this dash line here, and then the transformer's outside that. Transformer's probably another 20 feet from that.
Okay. And are you proposing any sort of containment
That would have.
plans for that?
So that would be, yeah, so that would have the oil containment, curbing and stone per the standard
Okay.
utility detail.
Yeah.
That's the transformer right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you want to continue this? That gives you time to make those changes to the plan and then submit those back to the board, and then we can continue it until, what's
July
it?
20th.
July 20th?
Sure, okay. That's the next, that's the next scheduled meeting?
Yeah, so obviously that is a very full night, but if you feel that the project
I
is
think this is,
close
and what I want to do is I want to take anything that's close.
there, yeah.
And you'll be the first ones on. I know you've been around, you heard everything else tonight. But we'll make it up to you next time, having, you know, because I think this is right at, you know, you're there. We just got to get it approved, just like the other one.
Yep.
They're going to make those modifications, and then we should be able to vote on it. But it helps having the exact plan, so everybody's clear on what we're voting on.
Sure, yep.
Okay? So, do you have anything else on that?
No, I mean, we can have we can have conditions ready, same as the other case, the board to review, as well as the applicants. We can just have those teed up. I think, we have 3 cases that I think we're looking that have been either continued where.
The 40Bs you're talking about?
Well,
Two of the 40Bs?
Two of the 40Bs, but that is kind of more dependent on what we hear back from DHCD, but we have 173 High Plain Street as well, which is continued. I believe we're gonna discuss conditions. So 3 cases are like that.
Okay, so, at the request of the applicant, could I have a motion to continue this until July 20th, 7 o'clock here at Town Hall?
So moved.
Moved by Judy,
Second.
second by Tim. Any other further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, yeah. All right. Okay. Minutes.
Back of everyone's packets.
Yep, thank you. I had a chance to review these, and I didn't find any problems. Bob, did you find any typos or problems with the minutes?
My reputation precedes me.
Yes, it does, and I value that.
Well, I reviewed the May 25th minutes, was not present for the other two meetings, so I don't have comments as to those, and I didn't have any comments on the 25th.
You do have comments for the 25th?
I do not.
Okay. So I reviewed all three of them, May 4th and May 18th. And let me just. I thought they were an accurate reflection of the meeting.
On May 4th, page 4, my name was spelled incorrectly. But I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it, so.
And on May 4th, can I just add again that I returned to the meeting? Because I disappeared and then I didn't come back. But I said, I made a comment, so it was 9:33. No big deal.
Which case was it, Judy? Just so I can put it in blue here.
It was the point, I came back for board business at 9:33. Yep,
Oh, that was-
that's fine.
Drew, where was your name spelled incorrectly?
Page 4, paragraph 6 from the top, and it's not the
Yep.
first sentence, it's the second sentence.
Yes.
On May 25th, they got me here and not here.
May 25th.
Oh, yep, I see that. Tim, you were here or you weren't
Yes, sir,
here?
I was here.
Okay.
Oh, I see, okay. Okay, with those changes, could I have a motion to accept the minutes of May 4th, May 18th, and May 24th?
So moved.
24th or 25th, what was it?
4th, 18th, and 25th.
25th, yeah. Moved by Bob,
Second?
second by Judy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Actually, we gotta do each one of them. Technically. Okay, May 4th,
Move.
Second?
okay, moved and seconded, and Bob, you were not here for that.
Correct.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
And Bob abstains. Okay. On May 18th. Bob and Tim, you weren't here for that. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 18th?
So moved.
Moved by Judy, second by Drew. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
Tim and Bob abstain. Okay. And for the 25th, it was the 25th. Tim, you were here.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay, and we can all vote on this one. A motion to approve the minutes of May 25th.
So moved.
Second?
Second by Tim. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. Good. Does anybody have anything else?
Do have one thing in the board business, just that, so in order to release unused 52G money, peer review money, the board needs to, I guess, take a motion to agree to release those funds. So that's why I just put a brief memo together. There's two projects that are outstanding. One recently, obviously, the 40B modification for Burns Avenue, with that case being closed, and decision being written. There's remaining peer review fund money to be released, as well as, I think over a year now, we have 270 Moose Hill Road. There's, that project was approved, decision's written, so there's funding that is also in our account that is to be released.
Sure.
So, just want to type that out for you, so all I need is just I guess a motion from the board to.
But the only one we should be releasing is Moose Hill at this point, right?
I believe both. I mean, if we've closed Burns Avenue, that funding, well, it's honestly, it's the board's discretion. If the board
No,
feels they want to hold on to it for right now. With the case being, for Burns being not so much closed, but the decision for that particular modification being written, obviously that was just recently done. You know, if you felt like you wanted to hold off until we hear
No,
more, that's
actually,
fine.
it's much cleaner if we
Yep.
we close that out, because we've closed out that case, because we've issued a decision.
And if the peer review money is returned, and if the board takes up a different case, in some scenario like that, then that's a whole new process of
And that would
getting
actually
peer review
complicate
funding.
things.
If you have existing funding,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so this would be to release both, this is the peer review money.
Yep, for Moose Hill and
Okay.
for Burns Ave Mod.
We have a motion to release the additional excess peer review money for the Moose Hill 40B project and the Burns Ave 40B project,
40B modification.
40B modification.
So move.
Second.
Okay, moved by Drew, second by Bob. Any further discussion? Okay. You probably shouldn't vote.
I'm abstaining.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
All those,
Do you want me to step off?
no.
Okay, I will abstain.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain.
Aye.
Okay, so carry. Okay.
John,
Yes.
can I just do this for 2 minutes, otherwise it's gonna be 3?
Well, it's
One.
not on the agenda.
I asked you to put it on last
Well-
time, and you said it would be this time.
No, it's not on the agenda, and if people
Board
wanna.
business.
What's
You
that?
let me put board business on once before. It'll take 2 seconds. Have you already got the email? I was just asking if we could put somewhere on the in-law application, a line that says the existing house square footage, the percentage, so it shows it right away, it meets the criteria.
Okay, I
And-
thought you were talking about something else.
No,
Okay,
no, I
okay.
mean, I sent everyone emails. And then same thing with the mixed use, because it seemed to be like multiple conversations to get these guys to do it. And then the third thing was to ask if we could have some kind of determination from the building commissioner. He actually did it for the in-law today, so I didn't know if he got the drift from or if Patrick had discussed it with him, but I think it's important. It will save a lot of time, that's all.
Yeah.
We're
No,
not
I-
sitting up here with our calculators and coming up with different things.
Right,
That's all.
and, yes, so.
Okay, thank you.
I think, and for the in-law suite that I didn't sit on tonight, we actually had a letter.
Well, that's what I
with
mean.
the
I didn't know if
exact square
someone
footage.
like whispered in the wind, but I don't care how it gets there. I just think it would be helpful to us and not to sit there and, everyone had a different percentage at the last one, and
Yeah.
then we wasted 20 minutes.
Well, the explanation was helpful as well, I think, just to get clarity in terms of what we count as the dwelling unit. I know this is kind of off topic for both.
No, I know.
Yeah, so I mean, that's helpful information for the board, because ultimately, zoning enforcement, the final stop is with the building commissioner in terms of how he reads the bylaw, so it's good to get that information from him.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, John.
yeah, no, I thought you were talking about something else.
No,
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
Nobody wants a second? Okay. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.